All right. Hey, Fabbo listeners. Super excited to have you joining me today. Today, this topic, we're going to talk about consistency, how to show up when it's hard. And I know that most people in this space won't say this to you, but consistency is not about never missing, right? We hear so much about be consistent, be consistent. I even say be consistent. Am I consistent? No, I try really hard to be consistent like all of you, but life happens. And at this season of my life calls me to be fully present. I need to be fully present, right? But consistency is not about never missing. And I think a lot of people are afraid to say this to you. A lot of speakers from stages or just other people who are generally teaching are afraid to say that consistency is not about missing. It's not about never missing. It's about how quickly you come back. Can you say that with me? Consistency is not about never missing, but it's how quickly you come back. Because here's the truth as I see it. The gaps are going to happen. Life is going to interrupt. Hard seasons are going to come. Weeks where you have nothing to give and you just can't show up anymore. Whether you plan for it or not, life is going to call you to be present. The question is not how do you prevent the gaps? The question is what do you do when that happens? So that's what I like to dive in our conversation today, right? So I think there's two versions of consistencies that I see. Version one is the version that most people think they're supposed to have. The perfect streak, the unbroken record, showing up every single day without missing. Wherever it is you show up, posting every single day to 6 or 7 platforms, being the person who's always there no matter what. You meet every single meeting. You have 6 meetings a day and you show up for every one of them. And again, you're posting on every platform over and over and over every single day, months and months. Maybe you pre-build your content, you batch your content, you show up on Reels, you show up on Lives. You're showing up every single day. Now, to me, that version is exhausting and I think it's really hard to maintain, but I have plenty of friends and if you're listening and you're one of these people, I applaud you. Because I think it's harder than most people believe to be consistent in showing up every single day. But when it breaks, when your consistency streak stops or comes to a halt, when life inevitably creates a gap, you're going to think that you're failing. Because that's, I think, what the industry and what online world and what the internet and what social media teaches us. Oh my gosh, if you missed a day, you're a failure. Somebody's going to notice that you're gone. Kind of goes back to the question to the last episode. You know, if you miss a day and you're just showing up and posting and ghosting, will people really know you didn't post that day? Because are they really stopping and looking, right? Like everything you have built is going to fall apart because you failed to show up somewhere one day, one moment, a week, a month. Now you have to determine how much consistency and missing would affect your life and your business, right? But it's not going to make everything you build fall apart. Many people I know just simply quit or they want to quit. And sometimes they reach out to me at the point that they're ready to quit. And we start about the self-trust and rebuilding who they are and what they want to do and not what somebody else is telling them or what industry is telling them or what social media is telling them. They don't quit because they don't care. It's because they've confused consistency with perfection. And when perfection breaks, they don't know how to come back. So that's how I think about version one. That perfect streak where you show up every day and then you fail one time. And in your mind, fail is that word that scares everybody to death. And fail is a word that we're giving ourselves. Nobody here, nobody in your post, nobody has said you missed one post. You're over, you're done. That's what we do to ourselves. That negative conversation that we consistently have, we let that noise come in. Now, version two, I think is different. Version two is consistency at the practice of returning. It's coming back after a gap, one day, 1 week, 1 month, whatever that gap is. And again, only you know how to work on that gap to where it affects your business in a negative manner financially. Showing up imperfectly when perfect isn't available. I think that's version two. Making the next right move without spending so much energy on the thing that you missed the next one too. We concentrate so much on we fail to show up We failed to be present. We failed to be consistent, that we're now letting it drain our energy, taking our focus off what we need to do to be consistent again, to get back on track, that we're going to miss the next posting, the next email, the next meeting, the next showing up, because we're letting the failure drive us and be fearful of, can we be consistent again? Now, I think that version 2 is more achievable, right? Version 2 is, how do we come back for it? Because we're real humans in real lives with real complications, with real things that happen, right? Calling us to be present. And the deeper truth about these two visions are this: the people who practice it, who built the identity of someone who returns, are the ones who will build something that's lasting and something that matters. Not because they never miss a day or they fall off a schedule, because they got back up faster every single time. And they do not put their energy into missing something one time or a week or a month. They put their energy in what they were called away from to do. They showed up fully present for whatever the reason was they got pulled off their consistency track. And even if you batch 30, 60 days, 90 days ahead, life still happens, but you're still posting. But are you commenting? And are you engaging? All those things we talked about, like in the last episode. So version 2, the people who practice it, I think, are the ones that can get back on track faster and maybe even stronger, because they're not letting that fear of not posting or showing up once or twice or whatever get to them. They get back on track faster until returning becomes the habit instead of the exception. You just start saying, hey, my habit is when I fall, I get back up. When I fall, I get back up. So here's something a little bit about motivation, right, that I think is important. And I know that some of you people know that I've been known as the fluff and, I'm going to give it to you in a motivational way. But I don't think we always grow from motivation. Motivation can be from fear of doing something or failure of doing something. Motivation can also be when things are going right, right? So when I talk to you about motivation here, I do think it's important, because most people approach consistency as a motivation problem, right? I can be that fluffy, I can give you that woo-woo, but I do believe those are strategies and they're useful at many times. If I just felt more impressed, more energized, more connected to this version, then I would show up more reliably. That's how you might be motivating yourself to do something, because the approach consistency as a motivation problem, that you weren't energized, that you're not connected to the vision. But here's the one thing about motivation. Motivation is weather. It changes. It comes. It goes based on things that have nothing to do with how much you are showing up in your business, how much you're showing up in your life, what you're building, the life you're trying to build. It's like the weather. There's going to be days where it's so windy, it throws you off track. There's going to be days where it's so hot, you need to take a different approach, right? These are the seasons of being an entrepreneur and growing a business. What sustains consistency over time isn't the motivation of being motivated to do something or being fully engulfed in something. It's identity. It's the quiet, acclimated sense of yourself as someone who shows up, someone who does the work even when it's hard, someone who keeps the commitments they're made, not because they feel like every time they need to show up, because that is who they are. They show up, they keep their commitments, but they also know when they cannot honor those commitments when life calls, and they're not afraid to make the call saying, today I'm going to have to reschedule. Today I need to cancel, or today it's not going to work out. Your identity. And that identity doesn't come from a mindset practice or an accountability group or the perfect morning routine. It comes from small acts of follow through, accumulated over time, that slowly build the evidence that you are someone who can be counted on by yourself and by others, right? Every time you come back after you've had a gap or you've had to step back for a while, every time you choose to show up, even in the smallest version of what you hope to give, you're adding to the evidence of your identity. Maybe you have to call somebody and say, hey, today I know I was supposed to come to this meeting. It's going to be 90 minutes, but I only have 45 minutes to give today, but I'm going to give you the best I've got to give in that 45 minutes. Or you make the decision that's best for yourself, best for the team, best for the group, best for others to not show up at all because you have to step into a different role. Life is calling you to be present, right? You're building the identity every time you come back from a gap, whether you show up as a smaller version or as all of you. And that identity is worth more than any streak of showing up social media, on blogs, on Substack, on anything, in a meeting, in a networking event, in anything that you have to show up for. When you build the identity and you start becoming the person that you can be trusted because you're going to show up in the best version of yourself. And if you can't show up the best version of yourself, you're going to make the call to step back. You're building an identity to be truthful and to want to be consistent in being truthful. And that there's times that you have to step back. And being consistent is a way that we grow. And knowing that sometimes being consistent means you miss one or two things. That is growth. That is impact. That is identity. That is leading yourself as a leader. Knowing that at this moment, the best decision for yourself and for others is to step back, even if it was something you didn't plan. You will tackle whatever it is head on. And if that means something else or someone else needs your attention over your business, you're prepared to do so without the fear of thinking that you failed and not listening to others when they tell you that, oh, if you don't show up, you failed, or if you missed that meeting, it's going to be a failure. If you miss meeting with this person, or if you have to reschedule, they're probably not going to book you. You're building an identity of knowing how to come back after a gap. And that identity is more than any meeting, keeping a consistent meeting schedule. So if I'm being real honest with you, as I always try to do, there have been seasons in my building my business when showing up felt genuinely impossible. When my health changed, that what was available to me, I was not able to show up on some circumstances. Heck, I remember doing a hockey team photo with at least, I think, 17 staples in my back after back surgery. They wheeled me out on the wheelchair, got a carpet down on the ice. They pre-set up my camera on a tripod. They helped me stand up for a few moments. I took the photos that I needed to do, got back in the wheelchair, and got back home and went to rest. I kept my commitment because at that particular time, there was nobody else on my team that could show up for this team photo, for this contract that I've had as a sports photographer for years. And we needed a day of just doing a 30, 40 minutes team photo. I made the decision I was healthy enough to do this small thing, but that would all I would be able to do. So it changed, my circumstances changed how available I was to my team and how available I was to my client. But I showed up. When the circumstances shifted in ways that I didn't choose, when the energy just wasn't there, and maybe even my words weren't coming out right, and the gap started to stretch. I already had a 3-week time of being off, but I made sure I had the surgery when it was the All-Star break, so I wouldn't be missing a bunch. So I was still going to be there for the client should they need something digital or they needed something. But when it came time to show up for that team photo, with the help of others, I showed up to the best possible way I could show up. And if I couldn't, hear me, if I could not have shown up where I knew I would not endanger my surgery or myself, I simply would have not shown up. I would have made the call to say, today I cannot serve you in the way that you need me to serve you. I made that call saying, today I can come and do team photos, but I'm only available for this amount of time and I won't be able to do anything else. That's the identity that I built. I was someone that was going to show up as much as I could show up, but I also wasn't afraid to be a decision. People knew in working with me that if something came up that was more important than a client, life was calling me, my health was calling me, or the health of my family member or something, that I would make the choice. But I would serve them and get everything done. But the choice would be I may not be there fully, or I may not be able to be there at all. So in those seasons, I learned something that has really taught me what I know. Showing up small still counts. A shorter post, a simpler note, a fraction of what I could give on that full day of photographing the team. was still delivered the results that they needed, fulfilled my contract. They were happy. I was happy to be able to do it. It gave me a break. No harm, no foul on me. But had it been an issue that I would have damaged my back or damaged my surgery because I knew I needed this surgery in order to get back to doing what I do and to doing what I was doing in my career, those decisions, I was going to be off the grid for 3 weeks. So showing up, even the smallest of a time, still counts. Because the reader who hears from you imperfectly is still hearing from you. The reader that says, oh, I didn't realize you missed a couple of days, still is hearing from you. The commitment you keep at 50% is still a commitment kept. Let me say that again. The commitment you keep, even at 50%, is still a commitment that you've kept. And every time you show up in the smallest ways, every time you come back when you're not at your best, but you're showing that this is what resilience looks like. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, we have to show up on days that we do not feel like showing up. And we have to show up more on the hard days, because who's going to take care of our business? Who's going to take care of us? And when we build what matters most, we're going to build a business that we aren't consumed with, that our life is not wrapped into, but a business that can run without us being there daily, right? We're going to build what matters most because we're building a life that we want and a life that the business can support. You're proving to yourself that you're someone who continues to come back and is resilient enough to show up even on the hardest days, even sometimes at 50% or less. That proof is everything. So this week, I want you to write down your minimal viable version of showing up. Go ahead. Not the ideal version, not the one that's available on a hard week. What's the smallest thing you can still do that counts? That still keeps the commitment, that still moves the work forward when everything wants you to stop, when everything's coming at you. How are you going to show up? Right? What's your minimum viable way of showing up? Have that written before you need it. You know, it's one of the things that you can just put back and say, hey, if I'm getting ready to have surgery, or I'm getting ready to take a vacation, or I'm getting ready to take a sabbatical, or the dreaded where I don't know what might happen, but if it does, if the health of my family members or even my family pet, if I need to be over at a concert for my niece or nephew, or I need to be somewhere for somebody in my family, and I have to schedule time away, this is how I'm still going to show up. Because when the hard weeks come and the hard times come, and they will come, my friends, you don't want to be figuring out at the moment. You want to already have it decided. And you look at this and say, this is what I said I was going to do. This is how I can do it. And if you're lucky enough and blessed enough to have a team member, they can totally pick up the slack for you. They can totally pick up the gap for you. They can totally pick up and have you show up with what you said. And if you're a solo entrepreneur, you are going to be able to have somebody. You're going to build those connections, those relationships that you can call on somebody to help you out in need. So friends, I just want you to know that while we have a community here, this space, this is what we talk about. We talk about these conversations that are not just mindset, motivation, and momentum, but how to build what really matters. This is what we're talking about. Sometimes this hard work. And this conversation today may have seemed to be off-putting, or it may not to make a lot of sense, but somewhere I wanted to just nudge you that if something happens and life calls you to be fully present, that you're going to be ready. You're not behind. You're always building. The most important thing you can build, more than your audience, more than your revenue, more than your reach, is the identity of someone who comes back. Build your resiliency, because every return counts, every single one, every time you show up small, because life is calling you to be fully present. Life is saying you need to slow down. Life is saying, listen to me. You need to take a break. I want you to know I'm cheering you on even harder in those moments, because I've lived those moments. All right? Every return counts. The identity of someone who comes back, that is who you are. You get knocked down and you get back up, my friends. That's being consistent. Not showing up every single day and just posting because somebody says you have to post. Show up because you want to build connection. Show up because you want to have an impact. And in the days that you can't show up all the way, You show up a little bit because showing up matters, no matter how big, no matter how small. And coming back from any setback is just the next chapter of your story. Till next week, my friends.